Hello and welcome to the old Fliers. The automation paradox is that the better our machines get, the more we struggle when they fail. Last week's global internet outage is a great example of technology failing, causing cascading problems everywhere. When systems go down, previously straightforward things can't be done. Try checking in for a flight when information systems are down. Just one example of the paradox of automation, where the more sophisticated and automated our machines and technologies become, the more bewildered we find ourselves when they inevitably fail. In his book, Messy, by Tim Harford, he suggests 3 strands to the paradox as our machines get more sophisticated. Automation covers up our mistakes, hiding our incompetence, meaning we may not learn to correct ourselves. When we rely on automation, we get less practice for our skills, so even highly skilled individuals may find their expertise diminishing. Perhaps you found yourself using your phone calculator for a trivial calculation. When the easy scenarios are taken care of, failures may occur in complex or unpredictable ways that we may find especially difficult to recover from, like a subtle but persistent failure in the steering of a passenger plane or recovering from a skid in a car on an icy road. Older cars were fairly easy to repair, often by the owner. Now, if your vehicle fails, it's likely to need plugging in at a dealership to figure out what's up. Were pilots and flight crews better prepared and able to improvise before the autopilot became ubiquitous? Are the Boeing MAX 8 crashes an anomaly or a new normal? In 2011, Boeing announced it was going to update its fleet of 737s, the best-selling commercial jetliner in history. The company's arch-rival, Airbus, released a version of its popular twin-engine A320 jets that promised up to 20% less fuel consumption, making it a direct threat to Boeing's workhorse 737, which first flew in 1967. But a redesign could cost billions of dollars and require airlines to retrain pilots and maintenance operators. Boeing picked a cheaper option, replacing the old engines with a larger and more fuel-efficient version. The aviation company ran into a series of problems in implementing its upgrade. The larger diameter of the new engine forced Boeing engineers to move the engine slightly forward and higher on the wing. This change left the plane with a dangerous tendency to pitch upward and stall. Obviously, this is a bad news scenario, said Mike Dorion, president of Dorion Aviation Consulting. To offset that and help certify the airplane, Boeing resorted to sensors. These sensors relayed information to an automated system known as MCAS, Maneuvering Characteristics Augmented System. If the MCAS caught the airplane pitching up, the system would automatically push the nose down and stabilize the plane, much like the new driving assistance system in cars that steer you back when you begin to drift out of your lane. But this fix led to yet another problem. The sensors tended to malfunction, causing MCAS to push the plane downward even when it wasn't pitching up. This glitch is suspected to be responsible for the Ethiopian Airlines crash, as well as the Lion Air crash in Indonesia last October that killed 189 people. From my understanding, the airplane kept pushing the nose down and the flight crew kept pulling it back, says Dorian. Chances are the airplane thought they were going to stall again and pushed even further down. The dual disasters in swift succession forced airline regulators around the world to ground the aircraft. 371 were in use. Automation systems on planes have come a long way, explains Dorian, doing everything from steering to landing an aircraft. They have helped airplanes become safer by eliminating chances of human error and be more efficient by using less fuel, which lowers the carbon footprint of flying. However, for every bit of good news, sometimes there's a little bit of bad news, says Dorian. The bad news is pilots are denied the opportunity to routinely fly the plane hands-on and aren't given adequate training on what to do when these sophisticated automated systems fail. The better and more efficient an automated system, the less practice a human operator gets, lowering their skills and ability to respond to a challenging situation. Automation is becoming so complex that airlines sometimes have to decide between training pilots on physically flying the plane or running the automation, says Dorian. Bloomberg reported that the day before the Lion Air crash, pilots flying the same Boeing MAX 8 plane experienced difficulties with the MCAS but managed to turn it off, potentially saving everyone on board. This was a remarkable feat considering that Boeing failed to even include its new MCAS system in the operations manual for the plane. Investigators only turned their attention to the system in the wake of the tragedy when a different set of pilots were unable to turn it off and the plane crashed into the Java Sea. According to the Wall Street Journal, Boeing had decided against disclosing more details to cockpit crews despite concerns about inundating average pilots with too much information and significantly more technical data than they needed or would digest. The paradox and its sometimes catastrophic consequences extends to other areas where automation prevents human operators from making urgent interventions. Tesla's Autopilot, a semi-autonomous system released in 2014 that uses sensors, cameras and software to drive the car on highways, still requires drivers to take over to avoid accidents from time to time. The automation paradox is all around us, from Facebook's algorithms, which replaced human editors, to digital assistants like Siri. The paradox is at work when we lose the ability to remember phone numbers or do mental math like we used to, because our phones now do it for us. Do you have to remember street directions when Google Maps will do the work? In healthcare, new technology allows robot-assisted surgeries with greater precision that are minimally invasive with shorter recovery times. The first robot-assisted liver resection at the University of Utah Health allowed the patient to go home the same day instead of staying at the hospital for a week. Even here, the paradox comes into play. A recent study by the University of California found that robot-assisted surgery may be limiting the amount of practice surgical trainees receive, leaving many new surgeons unable to perform surgery independently. While traditional open surgery methods were effective in teaching trainees, the study concluded that automated surgery techniques led to practices that resulted in only a minority of robotic surgical trainees to come to competence. Dorian contends that the overall experience level in the cockpit has decreased. Pilots do hand fly the plane whenever they get the opportunity, but it's still not the same as it was 50 years ago when pilots hand flew the airplane all the time. To counter this, pilots were encouraged to turn off the autopilot from time to time and practice flying the plane manually. The only problem is, if pilots turn off the autopilot only when it's safe, they never get to practice handling the plane in a challenging situation. Google, with its self-driving cars, takes a different approach to the paradox problems. It removes humans from the equation entirely. In 2009, the company was retrofitting Toyotas and Lexuses with automated systems that would drive the car, but by 2014 it was manufacturing two-seater cars with its own design. No steering wheel, no gas or brake pedals. If you have a steering wheel, there's an implicit expectation that you're going to do something with it, says Chris Urmson, former head of Google's self-driving car project. In Urmson's view, a safe car is one without a human driver, which is probably true, considering that human error is behind 90% of road accidents. Handing over driving to an autonomous car raises important questions about security and ethics. In 2015, US researchers remotely hijacked a Jeep Cherokee system, interfering with the radio, windscreen wipers and air conditioning, and ultimately cut the transmission while the car was speeding down a highway. The experiment exposed vulnerabilities in the automated system, forcing the company to recall 1.4 million vehicles. A self-driving car will also face ethical dilemmas. For example, whether to hit a pedestrian or swerve, possibly killing the passengers in the car. A human might make a moral choice between choosing to shift the danger to themselves or save a stranger, but programming a universal moral code into a car is difficult. Catherine Burns, a systems design engineer and director of the Advanced Interface Design Lab at the University of Waterloo, suggests a middle path that combines the best of humans and machines in an approach that engineers call human-centered automation. I'm talking about automation where the human and the automation are partners, says Burns. We want the automation to be augmenting the humans, not replacing the human, and not relying on the human to only do the hard part of the work. A human-first approach for Burns means recognizing irreplaceable human skills like complex decision-making, emotional intelligence, and creativity, and building automation to support them. This approach would mean rigorous training for human operators to help them prepare for recreational situations, or what are sometimes called edge cases. Human-centered systems are already implemented in nuclear power plants where operators are routinely required to perform manual tasks regardless of the automation in the plant. They check certain things, turn something on, bring down a system just to bring it up again. The whole point is to try and keep up these skills, says Burns. It's a deliberate effort. Netflix, whose algorithms curate our viewing, unveiled software in 2011 called Chaos Monkey that would randomly shut down different services in the system, forcing engineers to adapt accordingly. Seeing how the system behaved in abnormal conditions allowed engineers to modify the systems to easily handle future unplanned issues and build resilience within the system. If we aren't constantly testing our ability to succeed despite failure, then it isn't likely to work when it matters most. In the event of an unexpected outage, wrote John Ciancutti, a former engineer at Netflix. The best way to avoid failure is to fail constantly. Flight simulators are the chaos monkey of the aviation industry, and flight operators are required to do simulator training every year, but the type and duration of training is often left up to the individual airline operators. More importantly, some automated systems are so ingrained within the plane. The first autopilot system to ensure the plane would straight flight and level was introduced in 1912, that they are built into the simulators. Pilots have come to trust these systems in the same way we have come to trust computers. We assume that the computer is always right, and when something says the computer made a mistake, we are skeptical. Removing automated systems from our lives or rejecting them altogether is now impossible. Overall, Such systems do increase safety and productivity, but they aren't infallible, and when they make a mistake, however rare, the repercussions can be severe. Recognizing this goes beyond providing a software update to a shoddily redesigned plane. At a time when automation is widely regarded to be stealing jobs, the paradox tells us that the role of humans is even more critical. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and consider donating to support the channel.